Okay, good talking with you. Yeah. right, behold.
If that's all it was,
That's all
I'm
it is?
totally wasted your time.
Voila, screens are coming down.
Did you want an assignment during this? Because
Oh, no, no.
you just wanted to be part of the planning.
I just. Oh, you mean this
Yeah.
this afternoon? I just figured it was maybe valuable to be around,
Okay.
help with stuff. So yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure, sure. Sounds good. You're gonna tell everybody to get in their groups, and then we're gonna get going.
Yep. Oh, now
Yeah.
you don't want to wait
Why
any longer?
not?
Okay. And then when
some
it fills
hearts.
up, it's
Okay. Should I use that one too?
there. So until the screens are down, this isn't on. So there's also the lapel mic if you want it. It's charged up too. So
I'll probably just hang out back here
okay.
in case they start throwing.
And this is hot. So yep, yep. What do you think? 5 minutes? Just tell them
I think we should say go
2
ahead,
minutes.
so we can we'll get started in 5 minutes, but get into their
Okay.
part.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a faculty member, we would like you to assemble in your respective departments. And CTE faculty, all you folks in the back corner, we need you and others to migrate up to these round tables up here by Dr. Sperry, because it's going to be easier for him to visit with you. So again, please sit with your departments, and we'll get going real soon.
All right, good afternoon. I realize that I am definitely keeping you all after lunch and before a 3-day weekend. So I know this is scheduled till 5. There's certainly absolutely no way we're going till 5. So I just want to start off on a very positive note today. Yeah, go 4 o'clock. Okay, so we've got a little bit of an agenda to go over today. The scope of today really is all about revisiting Pathways. So Pathways was introduced here at the college in fall of 2018 as really the degree plans when that activity changed. Fall 20, I believe, was when the course schedule started to change as well. We're gonna look at some of that information, but. What we want to look at and talk about is, we have to review our pathways with the idea of revision as a part of our standard practice for HLC accreditation, which, our visit's going to be coming here spring of 24. Is that right, Phil? 23. Sooner than later. So spring of 23. So we want to have this activity. This will be the first of a couple more sort of events type of activities like this that we'll be touching on pathways. So I think what we'll kind of do is dig into some of the data right away and discuss a little bit about how pathways has impacted enrollment here at the college. There's been some discussion that enrollment has been hugely impacted in a negative way from pathways. I think Terry brought some discussions to me occasionally. So Terry, if you're here, you can kind of bring up some of those points as we go as well to make sure we're covering some of the issues that we want to cover today. So what I've also included here, because as part of our theme today, there is a QR code if you want to follow along. And the data that we're going to be looking at is from the KBOR website. This is the data that's reported annually at the state level, and we're gonna kind of look at this information because it is out there, and this is stuff that we can you can take with you, digest it for a while, because we're going to go through a lot today, and we're not going to solve all the problems today, but it is part of, we're just going to get this discussion going. So it's a positive discussion. I think there's going to be opportunities for realizations, some feedback, some maybe some things you hadn't seen yet, and I think our goal today is just to give you some information to help support some of the goals and initiatives that we're going to be talking about in terms of revisiting pathways. So with that in mind, if you're on that, it starts on page 92 is the Butler-specific data in that document, which is out there. So we're going to start with some data that there's a couple of ways of looking at it. We're going to talk a little bit about how Pathways has contributed a little bit to the decline in headcount, FTE, and credit hours at Butler since 2018. But we're also going to talk about other influences and how those have impacted our enrollment as well. So it's just good for us to look at this information and discuss it, and just kick it around and see what we think. So this is right out of the KBOR book here. So what we're looking at here, and I have a pointer and I forgot it. All right. So what we're seeing here is in 2018. I put that in purple, which is Pathways. So this is 2016 to 2021. AY would be fall 2016, spring 2017. AY 17 would be fall 17, spring. So every AY starts with a fall semester. So our credit hours, our head count has gone down, over the years, and we know that. We've recognized that. We've noticed that our classes aren't quite as full, or things such as that is happening. So yes, in 2018, when Pathways happened, you also see at the bottom there's a quote of them, and we're going to get into what them is in a minute. What we picked apart here is since Pathways and for last annual year, AY 2021, which is fall 21, we've seen a decline in headcount of 18%, and our FTE has gone down 20%. And there's a few reasons why, and the discussion was Pathways was to blame. Pathways, there is part of this that Pathways can take the credit for, and we'll get into that. But for the most part, I think what you're going to see is as our credit hours, headcount, and FTE has gone down, what we've seen since Pathways and since Aviso came into play in fall of 2020, you're going to see our credit hours have not declined at the same rate as our credit hours prior to initiating Aviso. So I think, again, this is another look at the influence that Aviso has impacted our student retention and success rates, as well as what we're going to talk about here in a minute with Pathways. So the them that I think we want to talk about is a school that's about 8 miles to the west of our Andover campus. And without using their name, they end in tech. So what happened in 2019, as you'll see here, 2019, which was the year after Pathways was initiated here, their head count and FTE went up quite a bit more than ours. Ours actually went down. So Butler, 2019 from 2018, we went down 816 in head count, 775 the following year, 770 the following year after that, which is an 18% decline. Whereas them, which essentially was in 2018, they rebranded themselves under the auspices of WSU Tech. Them, that's the last time we're going to use the name. So they actually went up 1,200 in head count. So what I think is a logical look at this, of course, this is all, there's no true data to support this, but I think a good theory is those 816 students left and went down the road to that school, and then some, right? Some more students went there as well. So, they went up 3% in head count, although their head count is not quite the same as ours. We're a little bit bigger of a school. But also FTE shows that same sort of trend. So we're seeing here, again, in FTE in 2019, we went down 194. We've kept declining in FTE, where they have not had that same significant decline as we've had. So to kind of support that notion a little bit here, again, this is in the data book, so you can go back and look at it and study it. And I've looked at this multiple times just to try to make these connections. So again, if you look in 2018 to 2019, where you saw our biggest change from 2018 to 2021 is in our resident out of district. So resident out of district students are going to be students that are out of Butler County. 60% of our students out of Butler County come from Sedgwick County, which would be our out-of-district students. And Aaron's here to fact-check me just to make sure I'm kind of, it's about 60%, I believe, of our students come from out-of-district are from Sedgwick County. So those are the students, again, that would have left. Most of those students, what we're going to see here in a little bit more detail, is they left our Andover campus. Some of them left permanently, some of them went online, but a lot of students that left our Andover campus didn't go back to our Andover campus. They either went online and stayed online, or they left the college and most likely went down to them. So looking at this data, and I will say we've had a great team of folks helping put some of this together. Shannon is our newly appointed expert in Excel and data, and she's loving it. So what we're looking at here is just our fall enrollment for our three largest enrollments, which is Andover campus, El Dorado campus, and online. And what we're going to see here is following that same trend. Fall. This is just fall only, And these are just classes on those campuses, Andover, El Dorado, or online. So the very top is a combined of those three, and then it's going to split them out as we go down the chart here. I know it's a lot of numbers, and we're not going to spend too much time on this because you're going to get a headache. But if what you're looking at here is if you see fall 2019 in Andover, and then you look at fall 20 in Andover, which is going to be what we saw here. The yellow is our COVID fall, right? This has happened during COVID. What we saw there was a decline in credit hours in Andover of 6,500. But we saw that increase of that decline online of 6,700. So students shifted online that year. Not as big of a shift for our El Dorado students, and of course our online students kind of just kept trending where they're at, minus that shift from enrollment. So we kind of separated out to look at morning time classes. These are all classes that happen before noon on those campuses. Then we also looked at midday, which is anything that started at noon, and evening was any classes that started at 5 or after. TBA are classes like clinicals or applied music lessons, those type of courses that don't really have a set day and time. Right, Shannon? So far, so good? Okay, she took that out, so disregard that. Okay. So, yeah, so sorry about that. I misinformed you. So this doesn't include clinicals or lab applied lessons. But there are some bright spots, and I think as we look at this, it's not all gloom and doom, and we're not listening to a Black Sabbath record here. What you're going to see is Andover has recovered, right? They're kind of flattened out. So that's a positive sign that students are starting to come back to campus. But what we also see is we're still seeing a decline overall of our credit hours. And the reason I like to focus on credit hours is because that's what we get paid by the state and reimbursed by state, and that's how we charge tuition. So we academics kind of lives in the credit hour world. So any questions about this as we look at it? Again, this is going to go fast, and there's a lot of information, but you're not going to also not have to listen to me for the whole time, I promise. So we're going to continue to go down and look at some more of that enrollment, these trends and the data that support some of these other ideas and bright spots. So some of the bright spots here that we want to look at is our high school enrollment. We've seen that grow quite a bit over the last few years, and 39% change of our high school, any student that's under 18. So kudos to our academy and high school enrollment folks, because that's an important part of what we do. It is 8% of our enrollment, but it's growing. But what you're seeing here is also these demographics of students where age-wise where the trends are. So what we see is majority of our students are between the ages of 20 and 44. And if you think about those types of students coming to Butler, what kind of classes and times and days would they be interested in? So with that in mind, the part about pathways that I think has also contributed to our enrollment impact is our completions. And the idea of rolling out pathways is for completions, right? To bring our our completion rates up, and that's really the goal, right? Whether that's a certificate or an associate's degree, and that's either transferring to a university with a completion and going on, or going into the workforce. And the thing that you're going to notice here, although our enrollment and headcount, FTE, and all those have shown a decline of 20% or so, our completions have not, which means we're graduating more students and they're leaving the college. This is an impact on enrollment, but it's a positive impact for our students, because that means they're coming here, they're completing on time or a little bit quicker than they had before, and they're moving on. So that is that is an impact of Pathways implementation, and that is a success point. And unfortunately, the fallout is where we don't see as many students on our campus and our classes. So these are all just different ways of looking at how this enrollment's shifted and how things are happening at the college. We're going to continue to dig into this a little bit more as we go along. Phil's going to take over and talk a little bit about the pillars of guided pathways. A little bit of part of today, after we're done presenting some of this information, we're gonna do a pathways building exercise. It's going to be fun, I promise, and then we'll be done for the day. So what we're going to do is hand this over to Phil. I'm going to drive the presentation while Phil shares his fountain of knowledge with us.
So we thought it's time to review with everybody what the guiding principles of the pathway model are. The pathway movement is all across the United States. Several states have taken it over for their whole systems of community colleges and universities. There's at least 500 plus institutions in the United States now that are using the guided pathway principle. Unfortunately, honestly, Kansas is not doing that, which we know complicates us trying to follow the pathway model somewhat. But I think there is positive movement at the state level in terms of, there's 114 courses now that transfer to any institution in the state. So that's huge. That's really pretty much covers all gen ed, and is increasingly covering courses that are at the freshman, sophomore level in terms of major disciplines. So we can work to our advantage with that. Also, a standardized gen ed curriculum across the state is coming very soon. So as we move forward in the next, maybe 3 semesters, reviewing our pathways, that's going to have a positive impact in terms of more certainty that what we teach will transfer successfully towards people's majors as they become juniors and seniors. But I wanted to review with you what is universally in the movement called the 4 pillars of guided pathways. These are the 4 things that need to be taking place for pathways to have the intended effect on retention and completion. So first, the faculty, primarily working with advisors, need to create clear curricular pathways, so sequence of courses which will successfully lead a student efficiently to their employment or further education goals. And that's what we're going to primarily focus on with the exercise Dr. Neville just said today. Then the next thing that has to happen is that the people in the institution have to help students choose what pathway they want to be on, what their, traditionally would be called their major, but they're choosing that sequence of courses that they're going to work themselves through over a sequence of, maybe 4 semesters. In the case of a lot of our students, 6 to 8 semesters, So you help the students choose, you intentionally help them choose. You just don't say, here they are, pick something. You help students choose, and then you get the students successfully started in their first term on that pathway. Then the next thing that has to happen is then you help students stay successfully on that pathway, following through with that sequence of curriculum. And finally, you do everything you can as an institution to ensure that the student is learning and progressing to the goal. So they are progressing to completion. So I want to just take just a few minutes and look at each of these pillars in terms of the roles that each of us might play with it. So creating the curriculum pathway. Faculty work with advisors to construct sequences of courses. And those sequence of courses, the priorities in putting that sequence together is it needs to develop discipline mastery. So, you know, you as the faculty experts in your discipline areas, you make sure you're picking the sequence of courses that lead to the intended learning outcomes of what the student needs to know when either they complete their certificate or they are ready to transfer on to further education. It has to fulfill gen ed requirements. You know, we have our current established gen ed requirements, which probably will be modified to some extent in the next year, year and a half, but that has to be fulfilled. And we have checklists of what are the gen ed requirements that faculty can work through as they're putting together the sequence. It's crucial for the transferred degrees that it meet university transfer requirements at the schools which the majority of our students will transfer to. Today, for most of you, we're going to look at WSU. And so, you know, that is a changing landscape, but, you know, we don't create a pathway for it to exist in cement forever. We need to understand that pathways are going to get tweaked on an ongoing basis, but it has to fulfill the transfer requirements. Or for CTE, since the majority of CTE programs are intending to prepare students for employment, then it needs to address industry expectations, advisory council expectations, that sort of thing. One other aspect that we put into our first pillar of pathways that we need to focus more as we revise is this whole concept of the milestone course. It's a course which indicates the probable ongoing success of the student in the discipline. So, you know, it's better if the faculty can be aware, oh, these are my students in this pathway, and this is a milestone course. We need to look at how they're doing in it. If the student is struggling in the course, there needs to be some sort of intervention that maybe helps them get over whatever the obstacle is, or might direct them to a different pathway. But we really need to pay attention, even from the beginning, on student progress, as indicated in the milestone courses. That's probably a rather different issue in some of the ET program, CTE programs, which when we get into the work session, I'll kind of float around and try to help you think through how milestone courses are probably serve maybe a different function in CTE than they may in the transfer degrees. Okay, pillar 2. Help the student choose pathway and get started successfully on it. Things that need to happen in this, advisors will help them choose in their introductory interview with an advisor. They will talk through what the options are, what the student's interest is, and they will get them enrolled in a pathways curriculum. We know sometimes students don't know. And so, you know, we have meta majors, which are more kind of umbrella groupings of categories of pathways where, you know, a student may know they're interested in SCM, but they don't know that they want to commit specifically to biology. So that first term, they may be in a meta major. But the point is to get them into a specific productive sequence of courses. They'll have a first milestone course instructor who should pay particular attention to how they're doing at the beginning of their pathway experience. Does this seem like a good fit for the student? They have a PDX instructor who will help them explore what the goals are and what the intended outcomes and what the professional potential is for the discipline that they're in that pathway. And leads or chairs or other pathway discipline faculty need to engage with the student to get them involved with the faculty, with the other students in the pathway, so that they really get engaged in an experience which will probably help them invest in being retained and getting to the goal. So pillar 3, help students stay on the pathway. Everybody needs to pay attention to, is the student taking the sequence of courses that they need to be taking to fulfill Gen Ed, to fulfill the major expectations of the pathway? Are they being successful? Do they need help? Do they need redirection? And then finally, pillar 4. This is actually one of the areas that we've been doing the best with in this first 2 cycles of the pathway, is paying attention to what they're learning. The great work that you've all been doing in terms of program pathway learning assessment, it fulfills a lot of this expectation. You can look at the learning that's been taking place in those milestone courses and see, you know, as a general overview, are the students doing well in terms of learning these outcomes? What we probably haven't been doing such a good job of is looking at the individual students. And is the individual student learning what they need to learn, mastering what they need to master to be successful in this pathway? And then as they get to completion, and I think we have great resources in terms of this already, student services staff can help the student with the transition either to getting employed. We have a lot of very good employment achievement levels as an institution, or transferring successfully to the school that they have prepared to transfer to. One of the things we talked about doing the first go around back in 2017 into 2018 was to do customized pathways for different institutions by discipline. We wanted to get pathways running, and so we simplified it. We probably oversimplified it. So the exercise we're going to do today, beginning to look at, if my student is intending to transfer to WSU, what courses should they have taken by the time they transfer? You know, it's probably going to be a smart thing if we start a process where departments say, well, the majority of our students that transfer to WSU. No, ours transfer to Emporia. No, ours transfer to K-State. And then use those transfer guides and make pathways that will really specifically focus the student towards their intended long-range goal. So, just to review quickly, we construct the pathway, we help the student in an informed way get on the pathway, we make sure that they're making progress on the pathway and that they're learning what they need to learn to be successful in completing the pathway. So, I don't think we probably have talked about that enough over the past few years since 2018 to kind of keep in mind, this is why we're doing this. This is what we're trying to do to serve the student. Enrollment is obviously crucial for the institution, but what we're really here for is to help students fulfill educational goals towards employment and transfer, and that's what pathways are intended to do. When you look at statistics across the country, the institutions that are doing pathways are talking about retention and completion. They're not talking about their enrollment. So I think probably as we get pathways to work even more productively, we need to see how we can use that as a promotional tool to say, look, come here. It will be a much more effective, efficient, productive use of your time and money to come to this school, as opposed to schools that are still cafeteria approach, and they say, take a course, any course, we hope it gets you where you want to go. Okay? So now Troy's going to talk about the role of the VISO in terms of these pathway principles. Oh, okay, yes. Right. I think I agree with you, but I think that it really isn't your responsibility to look at students that aren't yet in the nursing program. But that's a big field of students that I know that, like Dr. Guerrero, that we're beginning to try to look at ways to more effectively serve the needs of those pre-nursing, pre-health students, all those, because we have so many students that are trying to get into the nursing program, who I've seen lots of students that have 120, 130, 160 credit hours, and they're still trying to get into the nursing program. That's a specific population of students that we really do need to figure out how to better address. But I think you're dealing with the students you're supposed to be dealing with, which is nursing students. Well, somebody does need to be watching the students at the appropriate stage. Yeah, yeah. Well, and to me, the biggest thing that Pathways says is we need to pay attention to the individual student some way, and to help them set goals or to serve the goals once they're set. Yeah, I mean, like the whole meta-major principle, there's no question that a lot of students don't show up saying, I don't really know what I want to do, or very generically, I want to be in health, or I want to be in psychology, and we have to intentionally help them work through so that it's very possible to pretty much waste your first semester. But under the old system of cafeteria, it's very possible to waste your 4 semesters. Nobody says it's easy, and I think we perhaps tried to somewhat make it too easy the first go around. Now we've learned a lot, and we need to refine it, and then in another 4 years or so, refine it again and make it even better. But I think it's a very valid concern, particularly for that 1,300 or so students that consider themselves pre-nursing.
Phil, Jim has a question.
Yes. Well, actually, it wouldn't serve much of anything in the state of Kansas, because you've got 35 to 40 hours that are gen ed, and then what? Then what gets them to the AA? I'm on the Transfer and Articulation Council for the state, and if students just randomly take classes of 15 to 20 hours, the universities oftentimes call those dead electives. So basically what we're saying is we have started on our pathway towards successfully doing pathways, but we've learned a lot. We understand the principles better. We have had greater completion rates in terms of the school as a whole, but we now need to enter into a really in-depth refinement process to do this better. I think we need to have, like, the first go-around, because I was in most of the meetings, the first go-around, we have to take into consideration the balancing of gen ed required electives across the institution. I mean, are we neglecting some disciplines in terms of encourage students to take from some disciplines? We have to look at the whole picture as a whole. What word?
The word should. When you were talking about building pathways, that the pathways that departments put together should consider what their students should take. Okay, the shoulds there are interesting. Can we make that could instead of should?
Sure.
Because the difference is significant, I think. Because, for instance, at WSU, a great many pathways that don't include a literature course, for instance, might actually be able to take one. For instance, the health professions pathway, the health professions college at WSU will take many of our literature classes as transfers. Yeah, Jim, I think everybody will get a better idea once we work through the exercise part today, because I think once you start really digging into the transfer guides, and remember, we're only just doing this exercise with WSU because that is our #1 transfer institution. They have transfer guides specifically for Butler students, so we're just going to work through by departments what a student would have to take to build a pathway to WSU on their terms. Remember, we have to build pathways that students will be successful on their terms, which makes it a little bit of an unfair fight in a way, because we want to ensure that whatever our students take here does transfer, and they're pretty clear on what they'll take and how they take it. So when we get into that, I think it'll be a little bit more clear. But we want to keep on topic here. That way we can get to that working session. And I just want to reiterate that the concept is, how are we utilizing technology or blending technology with the human experience, because technology will do a lot of things for us, but again, it's how do we keep that human experience part of utilizing technology. So I think one important way we do that is using a VSO, and Troy's going to get into a little bit more on that. So I'm going to stay up here and drive while he talks.
All right, thanks, Dr. Neville. So I will be brief. You hear me talk a lot about a VSO, but let's focus on how that relates to what we're talking about with pathways. And two main things. So the first thing you see up here on the screen, this is now available in the Canvas course shell, the VSO Canvas course shell. So if you'd like to just download that, I've had some questions over the last semester about how the staff-initiated alerts work, and I don't think Sherry or Teresa is here, but we're closing 98% and above the staff-initiated alerts that come out, and of course there are any number of those things from personal crises to pregnancy, referred to tutoring, some of those things. Faculty were concerned that how's that cycle getting completed, and Sherry, Conrad, and Teresa they will talk to us soon about how that works. But hopefully this particular sheet that we've updated gives you a better idea of what you might expect when you send out a staff-initiated alert. As I'd mentioned there just briefly at lunch about Jamie Sharp, I know that work she did, and it was tough. It was hard because she contacted every one of those 800-some students personally, and then got back with the instructors about, yes, this is a person we need to work with, and those things. So these are very, very helpful. And keep in mind, as I was talking to the group of people who came over to my filtering session at 11:20, and thank you for that. This is a software that we own, that we're the masters of. So whatever we want to change and how we want to build it to best fit the way it's going to work for us, we can do that. Just let us know, and we'll continue to work on those things, okay? So that's kind of the first part. So how can this help with pathways? With Monica, who's on the retention committee, she kind of tasked me with talking about, so, how do we figure these things out with milestone courses and all of that? So what I'd like to do, I'm going to show you a couple of fun things that you can do. And Mitch, I hope this helps out too a little bit. If you haven't watched the little video that I did on filtering, which is also available in the Canvas course shell, filters can be your friends, okay? And I'm going to try and frame this so you're thinking about in terms of, okay, if I have a group of students come into my comp class, and Comp 1 is a milestone course for a number of pathways, right, Phil? Phil, right? He's saying yes. Gen Psych, okay, some things like that. So here's the hard work to do, okay? Communicate early with your students in those courses that you have and say, hey, is this a milestone course for you? And they may say, what's a milestone course? Well, what's your major, And so you can find some of those things out. Once you've done that, and I'm just going to randomly pick a student here. And yes, this is a person in agribusiness. So this might, well, let me see if we get somebody who's, again, unrehearsed, but well intended. Let's see. Well, this is everyone. You don't have a caseload. Hang on. Here we go. Fall of 21. Okay. Most of you are familiar with a student's profile page. Here's a student that we obviously know from what we do know about Aviso, who's kind of high risk in terms of persistence, and then we don't know what about course completion. I'm not sure about the courses she's taking. Depending on what your role is and your permissions level, but most of you who are full-time faculty have access to a lot of information about your students. And if you haven't done this yet, one of the first things that you can do when you have students who are in your courses is you can click on the Programs tab below their name. You can see just how often or how sometimes, steadily, students stay with a particular program. And so this is a major, and we're down here that after, this is a person who's been here a while, that after 2015, this person decided that now their major is chemistry, all right? That's not a bad thing. So, and I won't take time to do this, but one of the things that you can do is go to the webpage and go under academics to programs and career, programs of study, and go in there and you can look at various pathways in particular discipline areas. And when you look at that pathway as it's laid out, you'll see in the legend the little diamond shape behind the credit hour of courses. So for many people who major in psychology, we looked at this the other day. Monica and I were doing this. You'll see in that first semester that we want them to take Comp 1, and behind Comp 1 is a little diamond. So for that student who's taking that course, that's their milestone course. So one of the things that you could do with Aviso is you could go over here and, go into your caseload. Dr. Neville's not teaching anything right now. But you could build a filter. And I'm going to see if I can make this work with his. Switching here to this. And Tim, I'm going to borrow your Tim Meyer's major here. If you haven't played with filters, do it. You're not going to break anything. It's just a lot of fun. You can find things out. I know Kevin's interested in doing some of this with his. You can look at risk factors. You can break it down into gender and age, all sorts of things. But when you're looking for programs, make sure that you look under tags. Here's my history, and here's what Tim was looking for the other day, right? And let's say Tim wanted to keep track of for AY 20, 21, 22. And so he's got his history majors, or the major, and now he's going to go down and make sure, whoops, I went too far. Wait, no, I didn't. Yeah, I did. Sorry, can't see this very well right here. If there's a way to do it, I will.
Troy's going to make a video about this.
Where's my registration? There we go. So, and he wants to look at, okay, who are my majors right now in the spring? So let's add spring 2022. Okay, so right now, and this isn't even what the people Tim may have in his class. So here's where my filter shows up. So right now, Tim's got 25 history majors. So right now, right, if you're a navigator, here's your list. These are the people that you can pay attention to. So Mitch might say, okay, I know who my 56 fourth semester students are, right? If I needed to, I'm just going to do this kind of through a temporary filter. Instead of trying to search for them, what you can do is go down to your course sections. You can select your courses under your name, and you can build your filters that way. And you can break it out by CRN if you want. And then you could temporarily filter who are your high-risk students this semester as they move in and out, right? You can message them. You can text them as navigators. You have texting ability, all those things. Or if you have that list of students who need to come in, where is it at? There it is. Batch load that group of students. Just download them from an Excel file separated by a comma or line break right in here, and you can keep track of them that way. 1 minute. Thank you. I figured you were, I'm glad it was that finger, Donnie. Thank you. You kept flipping that finger at me. But the filters there help you kind of watch and see what's happening for those students. I encourage you to go in and kind of watch that video and see all the various things that you can do with that. I am. That's what I got. If you got questions, call me. I love to talk about Aviso and help you out. Thanks.
Thank you, Troy. Okay. All right, so up next, we're going to, as we're thinking about our pathways, our pillars, our enrollment, how all this thing plays together, we're going to add another layer of complication, and that's how financial aid impacts pathways. So we are honored to have Heather Ward here to talk about financial aid. Need that so I can do that.
Oh, hold this. Ooh. Okay, well, hi everyone. Dr. Neville asked me here to talk to you about financial aid and pathways, and I only have 10 minutes, so this is a very high overview. If you know anything about financial aid, you know 10 minutes barely scratches the surface. In fact, I even have a script to make sure I stay on task. So I want to point out, again, if you know anything about financial aid, we always have disclaimers and disclosures, right? So the information I have for you today is pertinent to federal financial aid. It does not pertain to scholarships or institutional aid. Before I can talk about how Pathways affects financial aid, I think we should start with the foundation. So what are the basics of a federal financial aid program? So at Butler, for a program to be eligible for federal student aid, it must meet one of the following criteria. It must lead to an associate's degree. It must be a certificate program of at least one academic year in length that prepares a student for gainful employment. Or it has to be a certificate program of at least 16 credit hours, taught over a minimum of 15 weeks of instruction time, and also lead to gainful employment and recognized occupation. And they use a SOC code to determine whether or not it's a recognized occupation. Is it page down? Or, okay. Per federal regulations, we can only offer aid for classes that are required for a student's butler degree. So this is monitored through a process called CPOS, or Course Program of Study. The pathways that you all create are scribed into DegreeWorks, and then DegreeWorks talks to Banner. This process identifies the classes the student is enrolled in that is required for their butler degree, and then if they're in classes not required for their degree, it adjusts their financial aid. That makes it sound much more simple than what it is, but that's the basic process. If a student is enrolled in classes that are not required for their butler degree, and so they're not financially eligible, we do notify those students. We send them a letter through the Postal Service, an email, and they can also see the classes on their My Butler CC account that are not financially eligible. We tell them in that communication that they're welcome to take the class, we just can't offer them financial aid for it. So there's a lot of what-abouts. We often get asked how remedial courses affect federal financial aid, since they don't technically meet a degree requirement. The federal regulations do allow up to 30 credit hours of remedial work before financial aid is affected. Also, for repeat coursework, as you can imagine, there's rules that surround that as well. Students are allowed one repeat of a past class, and the Department of Ed's definition of a past class is a grade of D or better. So this even applies if your program or a course has more stringent requirements, so if they need a C to progress on, that part doesn't matter. If they get a D for the Department of Ed, that is considered passing. So what if a student is taking additional courses that are not required for their butler degree, but the student knows that those courses would be accepted at their transfer institution? Unfortunately, we cannot offer federal aid for those classes. There may be some options they have at their transfer institution, but Butler cannot pay aid for those. Only classes are required for the Butler degree. Another one of my disclaimers. If you've ever talked to a financial aid person, you may have noticed that we begin a lot of our responses with, "It depends." And that's because how pathways, courses, and financial aid impacts one student may impact a different student in a totally different way. Every student situation is unique, so what benefits one will not benefit all. Federal financial aid is limited over a student's educational career. Pell Grants have a lifetime eligibility maximum, and student loans have a maximum aggregate limit. When designed as intended, pathways help students complete their program and transfer in a timely manner. This helps them maximize their federal financial aid over the course of their educational career. Pathways also benefit students who have previously taken courses or have transfer credit. If courses in a degree are not defined, then previously completed courses will automatically plug in and fill those open electives or open credit options. This may eliminate a student's ability to take a course that best aligns with their specific program, transfer institution, or their individual educational goal. You may be asking, where's the flexibility in all of this? Well, this is one place where course substitutions come in. At this point, I'm going to give a huge shout out to the wonderfully talented Carmen Bunk and our great, amazing academic advisors. As I mentioned earlier, the pathways you all create are scribed into DegreeWorks. Carmen scribes these just as you've written them. However, as we work with students, we know that sometimes the pathway is written may not be what's best for the student based on their transfer institution or their educational goal. In these cases, advisors can put in a petition for course substitution. Depending on the course type and program, Carmen may be able to approve the substitution, or it may have to go to your dean for approval. But once that substitution is approved, it counts towards the student's degree requirements, and it can be financially eligible. I'm going to give you an overly simplified example of pathways and financial aid. I understand that the example used may not be factually accurate and does not take into account various nuances such as minimum degree requirements. It's only being used as a visualization. In this overly simplified example, a student has already completed 3 credit hours of Comp 1 and 3 credit hours of psychology. When looking at a pathway program where the classes are defined specifically and outlined, the pathways requiring Comp 1, sociology, college algebra, and yoga. Of these classes, the student has only completed the 3 credit hours of Comp 1. Since the student has not completed the other courses, the student could be eligible for 7 credit hours of financial aid. Now take the same student who has completed Comp 1 in psychology and looking at a program that does not have specific courses outlined. So essentially, just 10 credit hours of open electives. Again, I know this is not a realistic example. It's just basic. The student here would only be eligible for 4 credit hours of financial aid because their previously completed 6 credit hours plugs into those open elective spots. Again, this is an overly simplified example. I don't know. This next slide is off topic. It's not what I was asked to present here about, so sorry, Dr. Neville. But you know what they say about captive audiences. I just want to share some quick information about public service loan forgiveness. As Butler employees, you may qualify for public service loan forgiveness. This is a program that allows qualifying public employees to receive forgiveness of the remaining federal student loan balance after they've made 120 qualifying payments. Our office sent an email a few months ago regarding a limited waiver that now allows previously ineligible payments to count toward the 120 payments. So if you were like me, went to school a while back, you may not have had a qualifying loan type, and there's now exceptions for that. Additionally, payments that are now currently suspended under the COVID-19 forbearance are counted as a qualifying payment. So those $0 payments that are occurring right now because of COVID, that counts as a qualifying payment towards your 120. You do have to take action by October 31st to benefit from the limited waiver. I personally have gone through this process and benefited. I did have to take some steps, like I had to consolidate my old loan type into direct student loans. I've listed 2 website references where you can get additional information, and also Katie Kern in our office, she can provide you guidance. She is our residential expert and will keep your questions and information confidential. So far, since October, she's assisted 20 of your Butler friends and colleagues through this process. She's received feedback from several of you who either received an increased payment count or actual total loan forgiveness from this program. So if you have student loans, this program is worth looking into. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions for Heather regarding financial aid and, of course, how that impacts our students on their pathways? Yes.
No, it is not taxable.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Thank you. Thanks for coming. So as you can see, it gets complicated, right? That Phil mentioned a minute ago about the cafeteria approach and how we've shifted as community colleges in this country towards pathway models and keeping students on that path. So as we continue our discussion back to pathways, we're going to bring our good friend Corey up here to lead us on the next adventure here.
Okay. So I know Dr. Neville flashed a lot of data in front of you earlier on, and if you're like me, you were probably thinking, well, it's so fast, I really need a little more time to put my face in it and really think hard about it, and you're in luck because we're about to do that right now, albeit in a somewhat structured and limited way. Now, if the structured and limited way isn't enough for you, and it probably won't be because it is pretty focused, you're lucky as well because each department head or chair will be getting a packet of this data and even more from Shannon, highly organized, that you can then take with you and start to process and analyze in whatever way seems best for you. For now, however, because Donnie's about to lead us through a pathways-oriented exercise, there are certain features of this data that we want you to look at a little bit closely and in a little bit of a structured way. It should help inform what you do during that exercise. And it starts here. Each department or each program represented at each table has a packet in alphabetical order over here. Everybody run and get them. No, just kidding. One person from each department should go pick up the one that has their department's name on it now. Go. Say what?
I was just making sure Nathan was getting
Okay. Those are, no, not yet. Thank you, though. Good thinking. Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't give it to him.
And I may have printed enough. I may not have.
We're going to see.
Enough, so they can
So there's multiple in each packet, right?
Some.
Okay, good.
I looked at
They'll
the
share. Yeah.
2019 number of faculty in each
Oh,
division.
sweet. Good. I was a little worried that everybody wanted
No, there's some have a bunch of some have
Okay.
We did a lot of good stuff. I do.
I told him.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, sure, I will. And just talk to you.
Yep. Alrighty. Thanks, sir. It should be down there. Ag?
Because there's a county.
Ag already has it. Everybody should have the data.
It's just not printed. It's not printed. Yeah. So can you email it to one of the ag guys like Derek?
And they can look at
That
someone else.
file folder, they should have it here when everybody gets back.
Okay.
Hopefully we have a future past.
There wasn't ag down there, is it?
It's on my desk. But she had emailed some stuff out. I'll run and get it. It's on my desk.
Okay, so please give me your attention. Here's the plan. We're going to go through 2 rounds of structured responses and analysis, and then it'll be a free-for-all where you can all talk about whatever you want together as your ideas take you. First, I should say a couple of things. The information in front of you has some research-oriented limitations that Shannon can articulate for you, but we don't have time to go through all of them right now. There are things like, for example, the fact that these are all come from data files that represent 20th day DAR information, and there's other qualifications like that. That information is included in the packet. It's in a file called data narrative that Shannon is sending out to everybody, or may have already sent out to everybody at this point. So when you're looking at this information, to chairs and leads, right? So you should have that. So look for the data narrative file in there to see those limitations. The next thing is this. I think if you understand this, it will help you get your head into the data. You see, annual year means fall to spring. So like fall 2020 means fall 20. Annual year 2020 would mean fall 2020 and spring 21, right? That's always so confusing for me. And then just recall the important milestones that Dr. Neville mentioned earlier. Our new scheduling arrived in fall of 2020, just right before the annual year 2020. COVID arrived in spring of 2020. You guys probably remember that. Aviso arrived in fall of 2021. Now, I want you to organize the data that you have in front of you, the various pivot charts, into 2 separate categories. So when I'm talking about the pivot charts, I'm talking about the faint and small charts, yeah, like that. They came out real small, so they were printed landscape instead of portrait, I'm told, but you'll have to do your best, and you can see that there are a couple of sets there. First, take a look at the ones that refer to department fill rate. seats, sections, and credits. Identify those ones, and you'll see that there are side-by-side comparisons for your department's numbers in those areas over 3 years, compared side-by-side with the institution's numbers in those areas. And once you've identified those ones, I'll say them again, they're the ones that have to do with fill rate, seats, sections, and credits. I want you to humor me for just a second and independently think through an OEQ. In other words, to keep this conversation focused and organized instead of a free-for-all, I want you to make an observation about it, something concrete that it looks like that data indicates and says. Then I want you to explain that. You get to just make this up. You can be like, that's because unicorns came and carried our students to classes, right? Or hopefully it'll be a more level-headed explanation than that. But float a hypothesis for why the data that you observe is the way it is. And then I want you to come up with a question to ask about it. Hopefully it's a stick it to the man question, like the English department's definitely going to come up with, that will be like really hard to answer. Okay, so everybody take about 1 minute to do a quick OEQ and write it down if that'll help you reiterate in a second.
If you can't find it in the spreadsheet I sent you, there's a table of contents, and the one you're looking at should be departmental graph handouts. It's at the bottom of the table of contents.
Okay, so 2 minutes of independent work, go. How am I doing on time? I have no idea.
You got 12 minutes.
That's actually pretty good. Yes, sir.
This is what we have. Is there something else? Table of contents?
That's the one right now. Yeah, these ones and these ones.
Talking about table of contents. I don't see a table of
She means in a packet that was emailed out, it comes in a big file, and it's like a bunch of Excel sheets, and there's an Excel sheet table of contents. But you don't have to worry about that for now. Yes, I'm glad that you were able to meet me there.
So you want us to compare like this, like across the this,
Yeah.
do this on this, and then move
Yeah.
on to this on the same.
Yeah, or just for the series of charts, for now, just pick out one set, one good thing you can take away from it. And we're going to do it again with a few of the other charts, too. So. Okay, who wants 1 more minute on thinking of an OEQ? Okay, that looks like one person does, so we'll wait 1 more minute. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to find what we're even supposed to be evaluating.
It's these ones. Okay. So, you me too. So roll. Is that the table of contents she was talking about? Let me have her tell you.
There's a little bit of relation to it, but there's only 3 different departments that fall into the same category. And you're one of them.
Hey, these guys have.
Rock on, Kennedy.
Your help finding the table of contents.
Okay. It should, yeah.
Okay, the next step is this. We're not quite ready to go all in on a full department free-for-all. What I'd like you to do is share your observation, if you haven't already, because it kind of seems like you have, with somebody right next to you and say, like, here's what I saw, here's what I would say, it's probably what explains it, and then here's the question I want to ask. Okay, so tell each other that now, please. Go. Just find somebody to say it out loud to.
You need me to wander and make sure people are doing it?
I think they're doing it, man. Yeah.
We do compound and we can start.
Okay. Now, I know I'm cutting you short because I'm sure you have a lot to say. There's going to be a chance for you to do that in a minute, but I'd like you to do one more OEQ. This time, I want you to turn your attention to the rest of those pivot charts, the same little tiny ones, but there's a handful of them, a second set, that refer to fill rates. That's how many people are in the number of seats available. By time of day, in other words, morning, noon, and night. Meetings per week, whether it's a once a week or twice a week or thrice a week class, and also by semester. So I want you to study those ones for a moment and make some observation about those. And then, again, float an explanation for that. Try to figure out why it is the way it is. Tell everybody what you think it is. And then write a question about that, okay? So 2 minutes for one more round of an independent OEQ. Go. Okay, that's a couple minutes. I hope you guys did a second OEQ. Now, all the chains come off. We have a handful of minutes here to share inside your department what your observations are. So our hope is that you'll turn your attention to your entire group and see if you can settle on some generalizations or takeaways about that data that we can maybe use, okay? So please, feel free to have a conversation about this for a few minutes together. Questions. I'm stupid. I'll go back to it. Okay, I know I was like free for all. Haha, I lied. If it's helpful, consider this cluster of questions. What trends do you see in student preferences? How can we use this info to improve the fill rate? What should inform decisions about offerings from term to term? Okay, here's a second cluster of questions that could help facilitate your conversation about this data. Are your department's offerings as efficient as you expected? Are your class offerings appropriate for the changes in enrollment? In other words, did changes match the changes in enrollment? Does what you offer meet the reality of what students are taking? What do you think has informed the decisions changing your department's offerings from term to term? Why should we continue to offer sections that have continually low enrollment, I can't read, and courses that, for example, have under 50% from time to time or often? What other considerations should determine offerings and schedules? Think through these questions now.
Explain why we have a blank here and then 1 and 2, but the institution only has 1 and 2. We were thinking that was online, but then over here we don't have it.
It might be. Let's see, this is business. It could be because of one of these qualifications. Is it, do you ever have like clinical or lab or studio classes? Not, yours don't count as that. It could have something to do with academy or applied. It could be academy. Shannon knows the answer to this question. Let me find it.
The ones right there are not filling.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you explain to me one of their Not quite. I'm going to say that thing. Say that thing. Okay. You don't. I'm going to. Okay. 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 So thank you for humoring us in this exercise. This is meant to inform the thinking that goes into what Dr. Featherston is about to present. So please give me your attention for a second here. You know, one thing that you may have noticed in the data that Dr. Neville showed earlier, and what you can see in the data in front of you now, is that our fill rates tend to hover somewhere between 60 and 70%. I saw one on there that was 80-something, but almost all of them are below 60%. And that means exactly what it sounds like it means. It means that of the available seats for students in that class, only 60% of them are full. That is like, in a way, leaving money on the table that we are spending more to serve those students than is necessary, right? To put it in perspective, most institutions have fill rates that approach 90%. So in one way of looking at it, one quick fix or one aspect of solvency for the institution has to do with making sure that we're filling our courses and thus that we're supplying courses at times when students are willing to take those classes and will enroll. Now, there's 1,000 things that have to happen to serve the 4 pillars of pathways and to understand how Butler has to function in the current enrollment environment. But one of the very first steps is codifying our pathways. Not figuring out, for example, whether lit classes fit in other pathways. That's an important question, or whether business classes are being taken by students in engineering or whatever, right? Those questions are important. But the low-hanging fruit is organizing our own houses and making sure they're in order, making sure that our own students, lit majors, for example, are taking our own classes in ways that permit us to continue to offer those classes. And that's what this next exercise is intended to demonstrate. And here's Donnie.
Hey, it's your old pal Donnie. How are you? So what you've hopefully gotten to see now is some of the data around what classes look like, the fill rates, the credit hours, all of that. And you know, some of it's a bit alarming, maybe. Some of it maybe isn't. Maybe it's sort of what you expected to see. But one of the things we really need to think about is what our students are doing, right, here at Butler. Why are they even at Butler, right? I would venture to say that most of our students don't say that they're at Butler just to be at Butler, right? They're not here just to be here. They're here to get somewhere. They're here to get to a 4-year program. They're here to get into a career. They're not here just to be here. They're here with a whole set of goals. And one of the things that Pathways is designed to do is to help them reach those goals and get to those goals. So in some sense, we need to think about the pathways that we have and that we've designed and orchestrated for those students. And so one way we can think about that is, what is the goal of the student? And we know that many of our students decide to transfer to WSU. It's not a secret. We know that. Now, different programs are going to have different realities. Phil talked about this earlier, right? I know for a fact, right? Like if you're an ag, WSU is probably not where you're transferring, right? No. But we know that for a majority or a sizable number of our students, geographically speaking alone, they're thinking about WSU. So it would behoove us to think about that and what WSU requires of them for when they get there, so that we aren't designing pathways that lead off into nowhere, but pathways that lead to where the students are going. I mean, it's a pathway, right? It's the whole thing. So that's what this exercise is it's a chance for us as departments to relook at our pathways, but to look at them with those goals in mind. So if you want to send a representative from your department up here, I don't think CTE courses have departments. So Phil's going to work with the CTE people who are a bit spread out. So you will see here, I'm going to give you a couple things. So just send one person, right? We don't need like all of English running up here at one time. But we've got social work, nursing, humanities, IS. So there's different transfer guidelines here to WSU. So look, if it's not exact, take one that is near you. So like history and such, right? You can think about what makes the most sense in terms of what they're transferring into. And keep in mind, WSU puts out transfer guidelines specific to the school, right? This is for Butler students to transfer to WSU. So take that, the one that would make the most sense for your department, and these are the guidelines. Then you will take one of these sheets for, I don't know, every few people, right? So you don't have to just grab one. You can grab a couple of these. These are sort of the rules of what we're going to do. These guidelines, right? This is kind of what we're looking at. So we are going to be making pathways specific for those students who want to transfer into WSU from your program. And then you will fill it out on this little sheet here. So you've got 3 things as you come up here. If you're in a big department, if you're in English, if you're in business, right? If you're in, how many you got? Good, that's perfect. 3 is a good number. 4 is a good number. If you're in a department of 1 and you're by yourself, join another department that's near you, right? If you teach economics, don't go join construction. That'd be weird. I mean, I actually would fit with somebody north. So if you're in a big department, break up a little bit. If you're in a small department, join. But think about working around 4 to 5 people is ideal. More than that's okay. Like, I'm not going to come around and be like, no, this is too many. But, be realistic. So send, what's that?
Go.
What? Corey told me I did something wrong.
You're kind of stuck on this.
Okay, I know. I'm moving. Okay, I'm moving. All right. So come get your stuff if you're part of a group. Your transfer, your rules, and then the sheet you're going to fill out.
Rules of engagement.
Rules. You got to get a sheet, too. While you're doing this, so what you're going to do as you're walking up here is you're going to build a pathway. You're going to build it. Around you, you will see various people. There's still a few people from advising. Willow's here. There's others here that can answer questions, and they're going to wander around. Deans are going to wander around. So Troy, you got to move without dropping anything on the floor, right? So you gotta move around if you're a dean type and help people and answer questions. But take about 15 minutes and work in your small groups to build a pathway using the pathway transfer or using the transfer guidelines from WSU. Oh, Willow wants me to do something.
We have gen ed check sheets too, so they can make sure they're meeting gen ed requirements.
Let's do that second. Can we do it after they build it? I didn't know we had these. So let's let them build it and then see if they met the gen ed requirements.
Yeah, we can do that.
Can we do that? Because I want them, if they make mistakes, let's catch them.
Point them out.
I can't follow directions.
I know.
Was I supposed to pick up humanities stuff, or was I supposed to pick up stuff for all of
No,
the-
just humanities.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I
but
have
like
to
you got
go
two
through a
for
bunch
two
of
groups, a
these.
bunch of those. Yeah, you're set. Go back. Pick up the rules. Did you get the rules? Good. You need the rules. Who are you joining with?
I'm creating my own department.
Go create your own department.
It
Have
is
fun.
the creativity department.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, okay. Have fun. You guys probably don't have one at WSU.
I don't know if we've ever sent a kid to
I know.
WSU.
Maybe Phil will talk to you too, but maybe you know. Maybe
We
look
work
up.
with K-State a lot.
Look up K-State. They maybe have a transfer guideline and do it if you don't mind.
It's also on the
Would we have a 2 plus 2 at WSU already?
It doesn't matter. You gotta follow that. Hey, I'm gonna. Yeah, but we changed that. They're not honoring it. They're kind of useless. I didn't say that.
Something like that.
Okay, you got Phil. Hey, one of your yeah, she never called. So I'm not like trying to.
When was she supposed to show up?
She was supposed to call me on this thing. It's not a big deal. Just tell her.
Oh, she's been under the weather. She was at the hospital, but I'll get in touch with her. Yeah, yeah. She's okay. Yeah, she's just been under the
I'm
weather,
pretty
but-
open.
Yeah.
Usually next week.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
tell
sorry
her to
about
call.
that.
No, don't be sorry. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure I didn't miss something. I thought
No,
she was
no, I
okay.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
No more than 2 choices for you.
Yes, but not when you're done.
Oh. Okay. You wanted to tell me I get hung up on something. You do crap all the time. Move it.
Why do you want us to build a humanities pathway?
No, you would build a pathway for an English student who's transferring there.
Who's transferring there for a humanities major, though, or should we do anything there's like a
Well, just do humanities right now. Just do it because that's like this is the transfer guideline, right, for the liberal arts and sciences. This is just it's a general education.
So
it's
we need to
yeah,
agree with it.
yeah. So yes, you could have a lit student transfer to that. It's kind of their general degree requirement. So, So you'll notice one of the things is, and this is a rule, is where there is an elective, we want you to only allow 2 in that decision, which feels different than what we normally do. But you are to pick 2, and you are to sort of internally justify that decision. So you need to limit the choices down. There are still cookies as well. If you need some motivation, there are still cookies. Lots of cookies. Not yet. This thing. Your design's pathway. You gotta turn this in. Not that. Don't put that down. That's later.
Oh, CTE's gonna do this too?
Yeah, you gotta do it. I think so. Talk to Phil. See what Phil wants you to do. What am I doing?
We just did our pathway. Oh, okay, just write it down.
Do it nicely.
Can I print it out for you?
No, you gotta write it. Good work. This is a pass-fail course, man. Come on.
Yeah.
He's gonna talk to you about it, I think. Well, I mean, if you failed the test, your division, don't you sort of die? I mean, isn't that
Yeah.
or somebody else?
If you live through training,
yeah,
you pass.
then you pass. That's
I'll pull up the.
terrifying but accurate.
Do you have to do one for EMS? Well, you don't have to.
You can pick whichever one. You got the data right there. It's like weaponized. Hold on. What? I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble. This feels like way too. So while you do, I just want to show something, okay? So just if you can pay attention for 2 seconds, I asked Dr. Neville for permission to do this, and he kind of said, "Yeah, that's fine," but I don't think he heard what I said, so I may get in trouble for this. But I'm going to show something, right? And I want to do a quick comparison between us and another school whose name I will black out, right? This is their pathway for. Oh wait, hold on. Let me zoom in, but yet black out the name. Okay, hold on. I'm doing a good job. This is their pathway, right? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, don't look over there, okay? Jeez, come on. Okay. This is the pathway of another school for business administration. Now, that's an AAS degree, so I realize there's some difference, but you'll still notice some similar things going on. Logic, college algebra, etc., okay? This is what the student goes when they go to look basically at what they need to take in their courses. Now, this is ours. Okay? Do you see and this is business too. Do you see the point I'm making here, right? If you're a student and you got to figure out which courses you need to take to graduate, which of those do you think is easier to understand? Right? And so that's one of the things we need to think about as we're making pathways. Is that, most of us understand how an institution of higher learning works. We understand what gen eds are and what electives are. And we understand those things because a lot of us have spent way too long in college ourselves. But our students don't necessarily understand that. And so the easier we can make it for them to digest the information to get from point A to point B, if that point B is WSU or it's Kansas State or it's Friends or whatever the school might be, the better we are servicing those students. Now, yes, they can make decisions outside of that pathway. They can explore other things. But the more we can lay it out, the better. So hopefully you have in your small groups arrived at something that looks like a pathway at this point. I hope that is an accurate statement. So if you're in a larger department, I want to throw one wrinkle into it in a second. But if you're in a larger department like English or math or, I don't know, give me another one. I don't know, this group of mini departments, right? What we should do is codify those into one pathway. So look and compare, start to talk. If you're in a small department, maybe talk to another department about the decisions you made. And here's the thing, you're going to turn it in. You're going to put your name on it and turn it in, and we're going to give it to Phil. So somebody's going to look at it, and it's Phil. So you have to turn something in to leave. I'm also going to throw one more wrinkle that Willow's given to make sure that I'm going to give you a sheet that involves meeting our gen ed requirements within our pathways. So get together and start to solidify those into one master pathway sheet, unless you're by yourself, and then find somebody to talk to about it.
The template requires a specification of milestone courses. Hey, one more thing. I bet you noticed this since you're all brilliant and pay close attention to detail. But in each term, there's one line that has an asterisk on it, and that designates a milestone course. So as you're consolidating each small group's template into one to submit for the exercise, pay close attention to making deliberate choices about which course in each term will count as a milestone course. On the list of parameters that we gave you before, you can see there are 2 sections, and the bottom one says what are Butler's best practices for designating milestone courses. The bottom line is that it should be chosen deliberately with respect to the information that course can give us regarding a particular student's aptitude for that field, their progress in that field, their honest interest in that field, and whether that field connects with their actual life goals. So that's the dream, right? Is that if I know that Cassie Zeiner wants to be a poet and she's failing Comp 1 in her first semester because she can't put 2 words together, somebody needs to intervene. Same thing goes with the situation Mitch was talking about earlier, and Jim, right? When we have 8 million students who all declare health pathways, milestone courses are one opportunity for us to intervene and help them make a decision about some other progress to pursue, some other pathway to pursue, right? I'm going to push them into lit. Every one of them.
And they go, oh, well, 80% of that doesn't work for this.
Yeah, we're literally going to take 6 classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's frustrating.
That's what this happened. There's only one
This is why on semester 1 I bring in the ladies who WSUs. Tell you,
So zero dance courses.
To make sure you're set up. It's like those things, if we're going to maintain them, because it's not, it's like financially it won't pay for those classes unless they're, well, no, they will if they're degree.
If it's degree bound.
So then it becomes something where it's like terminal learning, where somebody's intention is not to transfer, right?
Which is like what we one dance major in 7 years is that.
So most of them do want to transfer, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, like they're going to go to college for a 5th year, right? If they get the associate's degree first year, then the reality is that they're going to need to take more classes at Research State, which is going to cost them more money, more time, and they'll probably fail, or many. And they need to know that, I suppose, is one way to look at it. Another alternative is to say, well, we also have this terminal degree that you could pursue, like certifications are in CTP, where it's like dance or something, right? And then, like, I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does.
Right. Oh, okay, cool. So, like, you would accomplish your certification AA in dance, and then now you plan to just work after that, and maybe eventually at Research State or something. I don't know.
Yeah, just think of we're right there with you.
Yeah, I understand. It's just so hard with arts.
There was not enough transfer alignment.
And lit is actually in a better position than it sounds like arts is. Literature, but they sure don't think so. Like losing all our classes.
Okay, I lost my microphone, so I'm going to use this one. Hey, one thing that's come up, and I know some of you are thinking, hey, this doesn't apply to me, Donnie. I have a 2+2. What are you making me do this for? And I'm going to sit back and eat cookies and just laugh at you. What you might want to do is look and make sure that 2+2 that you have such faith in matches what they actually have in their transfer requirements. Because, spoiler alert, it might not. So that's all. Some other people brought that to my attention, and I thought I'd make mention of that. Okay, thanks. Go back. can't either. You're gonna be fine.
Not much.
We did find some significant problems.
Yeah.
Good activity.
What are you doing? You build a pathway? What are you building a pathway? What are you doing?
So I want to make sure we get. You feel like we're on pace to get to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be like.
See if Monica's group, how they did. I mean, Monica's there.
Are you guys making any progress?
No.
How come?
Well, we're looking at this and
Uh-huh.
comparing like which ones are upper level courses according to the Wichita State
That's the
guide,
most annoying part.
right? So we're trying to make sure that we're picking all the ones that are
They're actually going to transfer
right.
in a I don't know the word I'm looking for, in a grouping that will transfer.
Right.
So would one approach be just to like
Oh, we're still doing that. Okay, yeah,
get there and see if we've got 3 humanities courses?
Hey, Court.
This is actually proving to be a harder, more complicated task than even you can imagine, right? Like, especially when we were talking about like imagine a student having to do this.
Hey, it's your old pal Donnie again. Hey, so at this point, you've gotten to sit with this a minute. Now, let me ask a question. You've been working on this for about 30 minutes. Did anybody get a complete pathway done? Like, that doesn't have just an easy 2 + 2 that they just looked at and copied. Did anybody get a pathway done? Well, hold on. I'm going to let you keep working. Calm down. No, Tom told me to talk. Okay, We're gonna move. So, okay. So we have one that got it done. Let me ask this: did any other groups? Was there something like surprising? Did you learn something? Did you pick up something that you would want to share? Hey, this was really hard, and this is why, or this didn't match up, and this is weird, or anything? Yeah. Let's go right here. Take it, Derek.
We have a financial management course as part of agriculture, and we're looking at K-State because that's probably where we send the majority of our students here now. Realize, looking at our articulation agreement, they have a course that looks awfully similar to it that doesn't have a direct transfer. And I know in some cases students might come in and advisors might say, oh, this looks good enough, it'll transfer into this. But probably something we'll look at in the future is to try and see, oh, can we get an official articulation agreement for this particular course so we know that it transfers in?
That's good. Anybody else? Something stick out to you? You stumble across something interesting that they want to share? I'm going to call on people if you don't volunteer yourself. Math. I see you all not looking at me, diligently working like math folk do. Anything stand out? Y'all are really just going to straight ignore me. All right, that's fine. They didn't even look at me. Ben's just vigorously writing and art. Well, music. Let's go to art and then music. Oh God, hold on. I'm coming. So, what did you learn doing this?
I learned that those freaks over at the other school don't teach painting 1, but they teach painting 2. That's weird.
We noticed that too. When we were going through the data, we noticed that. Isn't that strange?
Well, our painting 1 is their painting 2.
Ah. That's even weirder. No, that's really strange. Okay. Come on, Chad. You got to talk about it. Bring it up.
We learned that we need to set up a meeting with some people at Wichita State.
Okay, it was very descriptive and a bit defeated, but yeah, I mean, so I know some of you are still working and you're doing your best to ignore me, but one thing you might, I mean, again, imagine a student going through this process, right? And imagine what they're facing, right, as a student. And Corey's going to talk about milestone courses now, which is the next part as well. So yeah.
I don't want to interrupt if you got more to say.
Oh no, you've already interrupted.
Well, I wanted to second what Donnie said about looking at it from a student perspective. I mean, think about it this way. Let's say, like, I'm a young John Lewis, right? And I'm like, I want to go to college. I want to be an English professor one day. And I'm going to start here at this community college. And what I have to do is figure out which courses of mine will transfer because I don't have more money and I don't have more time. And so what I'm going to do is try to navigate which courses transfer. And I'm going to run up against exactly the complications that you guys are running into now, right? Now, it's one thing to say the institution can work to streamline pathways to make it easier for students to transfer, right? The alternative would be for students to figure out how to transfer on their own, and we can either assist them in that by making our pathways support that decision-making, or we can make them figure it out on their own and throw in front of them a range of other possible choices and alternatives that risk them spending more money and more time. Say what? Yeah. Okay, last thing is this. Our dream was that we really thought everybody would be able to land on a makeshift pathway, a sort of dummy exercise example, and that you would also settle on 4 milestone courses, 1 for each term, the one that you're going to use to evaluate your own major's progress through those courses. The opportunity to intervene and help them make decisions about whether they're going in the right direction and, for themselves and, whether this is the right field for them and how they're doing in it. The next step is to imagine a milestone course support plan. And we have here a worksheet that's designed to help each program brainstorm how you can support individual students in those pathways by focusing on milestones. So we can imagine 100 ways that individual programs can support their own majors. We could have a big party every week, and it'd be so hip and fun that they'd all be like, I'm going to do this forever. Or we could also, have poetry readings every week if we're lit majors. We can also work through other areas of the institution to offer student support services. We can close our alerts on Aviso. One thing that we can do, one really sort of pregnant opportunity for influencing those students, is the milestone courses. We can intervene when they're not doing well in those courses and help them understand what that means about the choices they're making. In order to do that, we have to have a systematic and orderly plan for it. So here comes a milestone course worksheet that can help you brainstorm, and you can help the institution brainstorm how we can focus on supporting students in those milestone courses. You were. Here you go, guys.
Sorry, Corey.
Donnie, help.
Okay, so I know everybody's really engaged, and this is activity that nobody wants to stop working on, but we are running out of time. Unfortunately, I did promise that we'd be out of here before 4, so we're getting into the home stretch here. I just got a few things to go over as last steps. As Corey hands these out, we do want you to turn in some of these projects so we can you kind of gauge where we're at. But I think you know, the scope of today's conversation is even with our pathways the way they are, and how students transfer to Fort. Monica's going to come up here and give the, yeah. Okay, I travel everywhere with her. So our next steps is we are going to review, to revise our pathways. This is part of our work in advance of our HLC visit. This is something that we should do regularly, and it's just, you know, we're in that time of the process. So this was kind of the first step in that, to kind of just get the conversation going, get a little bit of, you know, just get the juices going about what our pathways look like, what our transfer institutions are looking at, and how does our students play into that process. As I think we probably have come to the conclusion, it's complicated, right? It's very complicated. So we're going to continue to revise those. But I also wanted to talk about some other opportunities that, you know, as we're thinking about pathways and enrollment, Jessica helped put us together, and this is in a handout as well, you know, some ideas to help promote programs, impact enrollment. There's a sheet in there that's called Inquiry, Apply, Enroll Data. These are students that have inquired about programs. So these are students that we know are interested in programs, and some of them apply. So that funnel, we call it a funnel, a recruitment funnel. So they're interested in your program. Some apply to your program. Some enroll in the programs. So if you look at that percentage of students that are interested and to enroll versus apply to enroll, these are opportunities. If you see numbers on that chart that say, hey, you know, we had 50 students apply, only 20 enrolled. That's 30 students that I think they are contacted by advising recruitment. But if they heard from departments to say, hey, I know you're really interested in this program, I teach in that program, that might be a different level of engaging of a student that says, oh, you know, the faculty at Butler are interested in me because I heard from them. So these are just ideas and opportunities if you want to take those back with you and work with your teams. There's how to help promote programs. We can, again, I think you heard Dr. Kroll speak this morning. We need all hands on deck on recruitment and promotion of our college to help us find enrollment opportunities. We're looking at opportunities. We talked about direct enroll this morning as well. We have our expansion with the nursing program at Cali. These are opportunities that are going to bring new students and revenue streams to the college. I know it's an interesting conversation, but our opportunity at the correctional facility is going to be very big for us. So we have opportunities that are coming, and if we're interested in returning that investment of teaching students and bringing those students into their goal of completion and success, they're out there. Wichita, Kansas, this area of the country is not growing in population, so we have to find these other ways to attract students to the quality of the programs and the work that you all do day in and day out. So, first of all, thank you for that work. I really appreciate the fact that as I revised my list this morning of why we're innovators and differentiators, I had to update number 29 to include badass faculty and staff. So, these are 50 reasons and ways why Butler stands out amongst our competitions, our competitors. So these are things, if you're out in the community, if you want to help promote programs and what we're doing at the college, you'll get this. Kim will email this out to everybody to reference. But these are just things I could think of, some things that are already in progress, our recent things that we've started, which, things like Creative Campus, laptop initiative, our H Plus rebranding, direct enroll, and then opportunities. So Phil's going to hopefully give us good news here soon about being the first national Avid Mentor School. We're kind of in the running for that. We have an awesome food truck that's going to be unveiled soon. We have our culinary building. We have a broadcast trailer that's going to be out and about at athletic events, high school events, enrollment events. It can be doubled as a mobile enrollment center with a computer on wheels. We can go to any place and set up a mobile enrollment unit and find ways to bring students to the college that we haven't thought of before. Partnering with business and industry. The thought of a weekend college, brought that up, and nobody in our region's doing a weekend college. So if you think about opportunities to serve students and offer classes that students may want to take that are full-time working students or students that have children that during the week is just not a good time for them. Weekend colleges are successful in places I've been. These are things we can talk about if there's interest. We can look at that. I mentioned Cali, intermediary status for for apprenticeships. This is a huge opportunity for us as well. This would be working with business and industry. We would basically take our current curriculum, work with those folks, build out a plan. They would send their employees through this apprenticeship program. Those students would be getting paid by that business. We would be teaching them. Everybody wins. It's a win-win. Second Chance Pell I talked about this morning. And we're looking at maybe doing some advertising on the buses in the Wichita area. I really wanted a full bus that just drove around WSU all day. But it's not available because you can't just buy a bus route. So we're looking at, we're trying these things, and if you have ideas on what we can be doing, please let us know, because I guarantee you we'll look at it and we'll think about it. Yes?
Have we tapped into the international student population to increase our enrollment?
Yes, we have. And actually, we purposely lowered the tuition for international students. So it is the same as out-of-district students. And obviously, the big problem that happened was because of politics, right? It was hard for international students to come to school here under prior administrative initiatives. So I think we're going to see that opportunity coming back. I think for some of our students that maybe just want to pick up classes here and there, direct enroll is a great way to do that. If they live in South Dakota or Guam or wherever. So these are opportunities. You may not see me out and about too much, but that's because we're really trying to find new ways to bring new students, new ideas, new opportunities to the college. And these are some of the things that we've done. These are things that we've started here since I've been here. 10 new initiatives that hasn't been, hey, more work on faculty. These are things that we're trying as a college to bring to bring ideas and students interested, because we have a lot of competition and we're all competing for the same students. But again, I'm going to go back to our quality, our price, our quality, and the fact that we care about our students, because you all being here engaged today, talking about pathways and understanding that that we have to really refine those and make those really clear for our students will only help our students in the long run. So it does take a group. I want to thank Phil, Troy, Heather, Corey, Donnie, Mark, Monica, Vicky, Shannon, Willow, Deanne, Jessica, Kim, and Reagan for helping put this together. It does take a team, and we will certainly revisit this conversation. So this is not the last Pathways revision conversation, because we do want to have some fresh approach to Pathways for fall 2023. So we have a little bit of time, but we're going to continue to work with data, using our technology to impact that human experience, Thanks, Mark, Megan, for today. Thank you all for staying and being here and being engaged. And I really appreciate your dedication to our students and of course, to our colleagues and the success here. So I'm not going to keep you any longer because now you have a 3-day weekend ahead of you, and here we are. Thank you all so much. It's been a great semester.